What's up, Rockstars? Today I'm going to be telling you about the new Gloomhaven crowdfunding campaign where you can get the brand new game, you can get a whole bunch of minis, you can get an entire RPG, and yeah, there's some interesting things going on about it. Okay, so first an overview, and then I'm going to be talking about some more opinion-based things. So first of all, on BackerKit, they now do crowdfunding as well as pledge management. That's kind of a big deal here because this is the first big project on there. There have been some other fairly good ones, actually. I've covered those as they've come up. It's kind of been, few and far between, but this is the first really, truly massive one. Yet, I don't think it's as massive as it could have been. We'll talk about some issues here, but Cellophore Games here has, or Cellophare Games or whatever, has 83,487 followers on here. That's from like their pledge managers and stuff like that. So already a really good following there, and this is the day of launch, about a work day afterwards. It kind of launched in the morning here, now it's in the evening here. So in that time, they have 4,791 backers, so 29 days left, and they've raised $1.1 million. Now, this is extremely interesting to me because it's not, I think, what anybody expected. So I'm going to go over just what it is first. So it's three things right here: the second edition, the role-playing game, and the miniatures. Okay, so you can get mixes of those. You can get one, you can get another. That's kind of how it's broken up. Now, if you were wondering why I'm saying something that made $1 million, it wasn't actually as impressive as perhaps people thought. It's because when they did like Frosthaven on Kickstarter, just a short while ago, they made almost $13 million from 83,000 backers. So there's a humongous difference here, like massive difference. Now, this isn't quite apples to apples because Frosthaven was a brand new, never played game. And then now all they have here is the second edition of Gloomhaven and the RPG and the minis. But I think it's far more than that. Because I still think, especially with all three of these combined, that they thought that it was going to be a lot more. In fact, their goal is set at 2 million, which they still haven't even reached yet. And this is after the initial big wave of people have joined. So needless to say, I don't think this has performed as they expected. Now, some people might say it's because there is no incentive to buy. There's no, you get it first. There's no, any kind of thing about like early backings or exclusive FOMO stuff, or anything like that. But Frosthaven had the same thing. There is no stretch goals, there is no exclusives, there's none of that. Now, they did have this at the very beginning, which is great. Why back now? Early delivery, discounted price, be involved. This is silly because obviously you have to pay for shipping, which one does a discounted price these days, but everything else is pretty legit. But this one has none of that. So they didn't do very good there. They don't give you a reason to back here. They just kind of show you what's available and then just go on your merry way. So that's a little odd. I'll be going over maybe some of the miniatures and stuff like that in a regular news video. What I want to talk about here is, I think, for the two biggest issues, okay? The first issue, let's assume everybody wants this stuff, right? Let's go to shipping and taxes here. And as you can see, the shipping is whatever, that's fine. But what's really weird is the timeline, the delivery. So you will get your first thing, which is just a Frosthaven, the thing you can find in your game store right now. You can get it shipped to you for more money because of the shipping in October of 2023. That's already kind of odd. I don't know the purpose of that, but either way, it's in October because they have to go like make it there and then ship it, okay? But on top of that, we have then Wave 2, Gloomhaven 2nd Edition enters production, and it doesn't fulfill until March 2024. That's a typical Kickstarter. So in other words, you're going to back now, and then March of next year, you're going to get the 2nd edition of Gloomhaven. And then, the RPG doesn't deliver until July of 2024. That's not too far different, right? So, a little bit farther back, but not much, right? So that's still kind of okay. You will not get any of these miniatures. The miniatures of Gloomhaven begins fulfillment January of 2025. That's assuming there are no delays. And if you've crowdfunded anything at all, there are almost always delays. This is probably the number one biggest issue, because if you want to back the other things, I think you're going to get them in time. But anybody that came here for the miniatures, and if you want to know how many, you can see right here, like for instance, the Ultimate Gloomhaven set or the big one, right? All this stuff, miniatures Gloomhaven, 734 backers, right? Some of these bigger backer sets, like the big one in this, are miniature heavy, even 112 just for the core one here. So a lot of people want the miniatures, and they're not going to get it until a year after they get the other stuff, or maybe even almost 2 years after. That's a big issue, because what you're saying essentially is get this game and then either don't play it because you're waiting for the miniatures, or get it and then play through the miniatures without the miniatures, and then assume that when you get the miniatures, you're going to want to play it again. It's a very weird business proposition that I'm not sure a lot of backers are really into. I think the timing of that is very, very poor, and certainly not something that I think a lot of people were expecting. I don't think people were expecting, hey, launch this campaign and give me a game a year and a half before I get the miniatures for it. Seems kind of weird. Okay, and that brings me to the other, I think, main point here. This right here. So what happens with, and I see this happen all the time. What happens with these like campaigns is you're essentially getting 4 different kinds, maybe 5, maybe 6, maybe 7 kinds of backers, because it's so unfocused. You will get people here that are only interested in the second edition of Gloomhaven. You're going to get people that are only interested in the RPG. You're going to get people that are only interested in the miniatures of Gloomhaven. Or you're going to get one that is interested in a mix of some of those and some of not. So you have very divergent, almost mutually exclusive for a lot of people, interests. Some people are only interested in the RPG. Some people don't even want the second edition, but they are all in for the minis, right? And so when you have a group of people that are now grouped together into one thing, but have very different outlooks on what they want and what they're desiring out of it, it's very hard to write updates. It's very hard to do advertising. It's very hard to do all that stuff. How do you advertise this? You're going to put some advertisements out on Facebook. Do you show the miniatures? Do you show the RPG? Do you show the second edition box? Do you try and cram all of those into one? Whatever you do, you're going to have kind of limited amount of impact compared to what you're offering, just because it's so divergent. It's kind of like making a t-shirt company and a car company. You can have people that like cars and t-shirts. You can have people that just like cars, just like t-shirts. But like, how do you advertise that? You put the t-shirt on the car. It's a joke, but do you get what I'm saying? Like, when you split things out this much, you get some people that are just in it for the minis, some people that are just in it for this, or just in it for that, and that's really hard to excite people about, because half or a third of what they see, they're not interested in. You know, you can be scrolling through here and I don't care about this, I don't care about this, I only care about this, and I have to scroll through all this other stuff I don't care about to even see it. That's really, really tough for people, and it's a way to kind of lose people, especially early on. So I think that's definitely an issue. Now, of course, also there is, you know, of course, like the price of things, right? I kind of looked at this a little bit. But the big one's $550. Then you get the ultimate set for $350, which isn't ultimate because it's not as big as the big one. Or you can get the whole, you know, Gloomhaven set of miniatures for $325. There is only a limited amount of people that want to buy miniatures for the game and have it cost more than the all-in of another game with the entire game. And additionally, because of how many miniatures these are, the quality is a little bit questionable too. So if you're going to buy a lot of stuff, you're going to spend $325 on something, typically you're going to want some quality in return for that amount of money, and not just a whole bunch of mediocrity. Ideally, I mean, it's just kind of hard to sell that. Like, here, buy a whole bunch of McDonald's. Like, I mean, sure, one-off McDonald's is cheap. You just want a lunch, that's fine. Now, you're asking me to spend how much on McDonald's? I don't know if I want you to cater. You know, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's all these things that are kind of like really hard selling points that I think a lot of people have issue with. Now, to give this into context, right? There were, I think, over 12,000 people, like ready for the festival, or, you know, getting ready to ride the pledge train or whatever. There was some weird, like, a setup thing where they were streaming and kind of showing some stuff. And a lot of people were there on launch, so much that it broke backer kit. But then when it finally did launch, there was a countdown and all that, they converted only this amount. In fact, far less. In fact, for a long while, for a fair amount of time, it didn't even break 100,000. Now, there was people trying to get in and stuff like that, but the time's past that. Again, it's been hours and hours now. There's also some oddity around, like, how there's 4,870 here and 4,822 here. It's not the same number. I'm assuming that's not just like everybody in the pledge train, and then if they drop it, it still stays. Mainly because I think a lot of people back and then drop later, and I think it was probably more than that difference. But I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on there, so I don't know which number to trust on that. There's a lot of good here. There's a lot of kind of rough. I mean, backer kit's kind of weird. Like, you see the Like, there's not really a good way just to see updates without clicking that, and everybody isn't responding to anybody else, really. There's not a lot of responses, and if you click read more, it's a whole nother page load that takes you away from everything, and then you can see responses, and you go back, and it puts you up to the very back. In fact, you can't even click pledge levels without getting another page load, so there's not really a good way to kind of look at both at the same time, and like, the platform itself has some issues, and I'm sure Gloomhaven is really pressing that to its limits, but I don't think that's the cause of this. In fact, I don't think this is a Gloomhaven problem. This is something I just covered a little bit on Antro's Best Odyssey. Maybe I'll do a whole dedicated video to it, but I think right now, in today's economy, with the backers that are here, that have been here for a long time, the bread and butter of this crowdfunding bonanza that is board games, I don't think people are really ready to sign up for these, like, $500+ games with 30+ expansions that you get 3,000 campaign hours of and 800+ miniatures and all this stuff, and you have to buy 3 new Calyx shelves just to store it all, and it's just too much, and it's not the right time for that. That was like 2018, 2019 stuff, pre-COVID stuff, in the heyday of crowdfunding, when these games could be massive and they could deliver on the cheap and you got fantastic deals. But now money's tighter, everything costs more, including these campaigns, and when you're asking $500 for more game than you can possibly ever play, and you won't get it till 2025 for half of it, it becomes a hard sell. And I think a lot of people see it, they're kind of excited about it, but considering, again, this is going to retail, you will be able to buy it, you won't have to worry about shipping, you won't be out of money for years, you could just go and get it. Makes it awful tempting to just hold off and just wait to piecemeal it out later as opposed to this. But I don't think it's really backer kit. I know some people will, because of the difference here where they're breaking records on Kickstarter, making almost 13 million in here. They took hours and hours and hours to even touch 1 million, with more on offer, which is the other thing is, yes, there's 4,800 backers. You can see at the, let me go to pledge levels, I have to page load here, 1,080 are $1 backers. So there's quite a bit of people right there, but it's really easy to spend a lot of money. The reason Kingdom Death Monster had the title for so long before Frosthaven was because of how expensive it is, not because of how many backers there were. There actually wasn't that many backers. Like Exploding Kittens had more backers, right? But the amount you could spend was less. But these boutique games like this, where you can spend $550, one person can drop that amount of money on this, and if they buy 2, 1 to sell, now you've made over $1,000 on this one person. It's very easy to get these $1 million of revenue, again, not profit, revenue, when you have stuff that expensive. It's why the trend has been going up. It's right along with how expensive these stupid games are. But suffice it to say, it shouldn't have been very hard to reach that. Kamban, even at them now, which is much less than where they were again in their prime, can easily break 1 million day one. This is nothing impressive. This is nothing groundbreaking. And for something as big as this that have set records multiple times before on other crowdfunding sites, it's a huge surprise. I think it's a little unfortunate. I think there's some misfires. Again, I think the biggest issue is that delivery, and then of course just how much money it is. Just how this is 3 different campaigns in one, and there's not really any focus on any one thing because they're all so, divergent. And I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on this. That's my thoughts. That's my suspicion on what's going on here. They're going to do fine. Cephalofair is going to be A-OK, Cephalofair, whatever it is, I can never say it right. They will do fine, right? They have a great retail presence. They have a great product. People love their game. You can't go wrong there. That Isaac has a little cult following, right? Where people just love him, and that's a good thing to have on the internet, especially as a business, right? Like popularity is great. And so they're going to do okay. And this is certainly not a small backing, especially on BackerKit. But it does pale in comparison to, I think, a lot of expectations. And I'm curious to know if you have any opinions on why, or maybe you disagree entirely. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to have a chat with you. Guys, thank you so very much for your time. This definitely deserved its own video because, in fact, it might even spawn to a second one talking about these big campaigns. Let me know if you want to hear more on my thoughts on that. I might regulate that to an extended edition over on Patreon and YouTube membership, where I do extra long form content, where I talk really in depth about extra stuff like that, because I can't put everything on here. It would bore you guys, and the algorithm would suffer for it. But I definitely have more to talk about that. So when it comes to big games, all the way back to like Grim Dynasty and what was happening with Grimlord Games and stuff like that. So if you want to hear more, let me know, of course. Guys, thank you so very much. Have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you guys again real soon. Bye, guys.